السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله على إحسانه وشكر له على تفضله وامتنانه، ولا إله إلا الله تعظيما لشأنه، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله داعي إلى رضوانه وعلى آله وأصحابه وإخوانه. أما بعد. إخواني في الله, we are continuing with our lecture series regarding the belief of the Muslims with regards to the Day of Judgment. We are taking the second book of the series that is about the death and the grave. This lecture we are looking at, Ikhwani Fillah, the evil end, Su'ul Khatima. We are looking at the evil end, and inshallah tomorrow we shall conclude on the evil end. Listen to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran? In surah Araaf, verse number 175 and 176. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran? In verse 175 and 176 of surah Araaf. And what is the story behind this verse of surah Araaf, verse number 175 and 176 of the Quran? Listen to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says with the recitation of Shukr.
وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ الَّذِي آتَيْنَاهُ آيَاتِنَا فانسلخ منها فأتبعه الشيطان فكان من الغاوين ولو شئنا لرفعناه بها ولكنه أخلد إلى الأرض واتبع هواه فمثله كمثل الكلب إن تحمل عليه يلهث أو تتركه يلهث ذلك مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآياتنا فاقصص القصص لعلهم يتفكرون.
Ikhwani Fillah, this is verse number 175 and 176 of Surah Al-Araaf, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبْأَ الَّذِي آتَيْنَاهُ آيَاتِنَا, and recite to them, O Prophet, of the man we gave him our signs. We gave him our signs. What is the story of this man of Surah Al-Araaf, verse number 175 and 176? The scholars of tafsir, they say that this man was a scholar. His name is Balaam ibn Ba'ura. Balaam ibn Ba'ura, also mentioned in the Torah and in the Bible in the book of Numbers. This man, Ikhwani Fillah, was not from the Bani Israel. Balaam ibn Ba'ura was from the grandchildren of the Prophet Lut alayhi salam. Lut, the son of Harran, the son of Azar. As you know, Ibrahim alayhi salam had a brother called Harran, and the father was Azar. And Ibrahim alayhi salam had a nephew who was the Prophet Lut alayhi salam. From the genealogy of Lut alayhi salam came this man Balaam ibn Ba'ura. So this man was settled with a group of his tribe from the Canaanites in a place in Jordan, in Ardu Sham, in the land of Asham. So Musa alayhi salam, he has escaped with the children of Israel from Fir'aun. He has escaped Egypt. He has entered the land of Asham. And they worshipped the calf, as you all aware. And it was made for them haram, for them to enter Bayt al-Maqdis 40 sana. 40 years yatihuna fil ard. They shall walk or travel around the world, but they will not be able to enter the land of Bayt al-Maqdis for 40 years. Within those 40 years, Musa alayhi salam and his tribe of Bani Israel, they were conquering areas of Asham with a great army that they started building. So one day Musa alayhi salam and his army from the Bani Israel, they come and settle here in this land where this man Balaam ibn Ba'ura and his tribe of the Jabbariyin in the land of Jordan, in the land of Asham. So they get scared, these people, and they go to this man Balaam ibn Ba'ura. This man was a righteous man. He was one of the Salihin, a worshipper of Allah, and also a scholar on top of that. Listen to this man's story. This man was a worshipper, a scholar of Allah. وَقِيلَ أَنَّهُ كَانَ مُجَابُ الدَّعْوَةِ. And it was said that he used to raise his hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answers his dua immediately. These are people who have a great relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah accepts their dua. Amongst them was this man at his time, Balaam ibn Ba'urah. He used to raise his hands. وَقِيلَ أَنَّهُ يَعْلَمُ الْإِسْمَ الْأَعْظَمِ. And it was said that he knew the hidden name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That if you make any dua with this hidden name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you whatever you request. The scholars have differed. What is this name of Allah that if you make dua with it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer your dua? Some of the scholars, they say, if you say, Ya Allah, Allah will answer your dua. Others, they say, Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum, huwa ismullah al-a'zam, is the greatest name of Allah, that if you make dua with it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will answer. But this man knew this secret name, and he used to make dua often with this dua, with this name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was very close. So the children of Israel have come and settled near this Qarya, or this village of the Jabbareen, this tribe that was from Iraq, from the lands of Babylon, from the tribe of Ibrahim alayhi salam, that family. They are settled here. And the Banu Israel have come to settle here. This Banu Israel are going to definitely expel us from here. They are going to finish us off. So they say to Balaam, "Oh Balaam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts your dua. Make dua against Musa alayhi salam and his people." Balaam says, Subhanallah, Ad'u ala nabi, I make dua against the Prophet of Allah who is protected or has the angels and the believers behind him. I cannot make a dua against the Prophet of Allah, al-Rasul of Allah. I cannot do such a thing. And they continue to try convincing Balaam, make a dua against Musa alayhi salam. We shall give you anything from the wealth of this dunya that you please. And they give him lots of wealth until he surrenders to their desires. And he says, I shall make dua against Musa alayhi salam. Ya salam. And he goes to a mountain that overlooks the campsite of the Banu Israel. This mountain is known as Jabal al-Husban. And he raises his hands up. And he wants to make dua against Musa alayhi salam and the Bani Israel. And every single time he wants to make dua for his people, Allah twists his tongue and makes his tongue make dua for the children of Israel. And every time he wants to make dua against the children of Israel, Allah twists his tongue and he makes dua against his own tribe. For example, he wants to say, Allahumma ahlik Bani Israel. Oh Allah, destroy Bani Israel. But Allah twists his tongue and he makes dua against his own tribe. Or he wants to say, Allahumma ansur qawmi. Oh Allah, save my people. But Allah twists his tongue and he makes dua for the Bani Israel. Oh Allah, Allahumma ansur qawmi Bani Israel. Allahumma ansur Bani Israel. So Allah twisted his tongue. And the people are wondering, Ya Balaam, we asked you to make a dua for us and against Bani Israel, yet you're making a dua for them and against us. They say this. He says, this is beyond me. This is Allah's will, and Allah has decided as He's pleased. Allah has decided as He wishes. So he loses both dunya. He was not able to get the wealth that he so much desired, and he lost akhirah. He lost the good relation that he had with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he felt ashamed. He felt that he was in great loss. And the same way like Iblis decided when he was thrown out of Jannah, Iblis decided that I am thrown out of Jannah. Jannah has been made haram for me. I shall make sure also this Bani Adam, these children of Adam, I shall take them to the hellfire with me. The same way this Balaam ibn Ba'urah, he decided that the children of Bani Israel, I have to misguide them. I have to put them in great loss in whatsoever manner that I can. And he plotted, and he plotted. The Prophet ﷺ, he says in an authentic hadith, أول فتنة بني إسرائيل في النساء. The very first temptation or the very first trial to befall the children of Israel is the women, the Nisa. So Balaam, he plans and he plots and he wants to misguide and harm the people of Bani Israel. So he says to his tribe, جَمِّلُوا نِسَاءَكُمْ. Beautify all your women, your wives, your daughters, your mothers, whichever beautiful woman you have in society, beautify them. Give them their best clothes, give them the best makeup, the best perfume. Let them look very attractive. ثم أرسلوهن إلى معسكرات بني إسرائيل. Then let them go to the campsite of the Bani Israel and offer their bodies to whoever of the children of Israel wants them. Do not worry even if it's their wives. Allow even your wives to do such acts. So these women, they beautified themselves and they went to the campsite of the Bani Israel, seducing them, calling them to ma'asiyah, calling them to zina. And zina does not become present in any society except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroys that society with diseases that were not present before. So these women, they go, they seduce the Bani Israel. Then one of the elders of Bani Israel, he gets obsessed by one of these women. Look at what this Khabith does. He takes that woman to Musa alayhi salam, to Prophet Musa alayhi salam, and says to him, I know you're going to tell me that she is haram for me. Are you not going to tell me that? He says, yes, she's haram for you. He says, I do not care. I shall take her with me. So he takes the woman, ikhwani fillah, he goes to his camp or his tent and he starts committing fahisha with her. He starts fornicating with her day in and day out. Until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought a plague, a disease to the children of Bani Israel, and they started dying in tens and hundreds at a go. Over 70,000 of the Bani Israel lost their lives in the plague that occurred because of this zina that was being done by this one man. Until one of the brave ones, one of the righteous ones amongst them, he took a spear and he said, I shall end this munkar for good. And he entered the tent where this man was fornicating with this woman. And with one spear throw, he killed both the man and the woman. And the ta'un and the plague that was there ended. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the story of the evil end of this man who was a scholar, who was a worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a person whose dua used to be accepted by Allah, a person who used to call people to good. But this man, he turned around and he became one of the enemies of Islam. He became one of the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ الَّذِي آتَيْنَاهُ آيَاتِنَا فَانْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا. And recite to them, O Prophet, of the story of the man that we gave him our verses and our miracles and our message. We gave him the knowledge of the religion. فَانْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا. And he left. He revolted. He left the deen. And he followed the shaitan. And he was amongst the ghawin, amongst the deviant ones. If Allah wished, He would have raised this man. وَلَكِنَّهُ أَخْلَدَهُ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. But He made him descend or cling upon the earth. Then Allah gives one of the ugliest metaphors or one of the ugliest examples in the Quran. He says that this man, كَمَثَلِ الْكَلْبِ. His example is that of a dog. إِن تَحْمِلَ عَلَيْهِ يَلْحَثْ أَوْ تَتْرُكْهُ يَلْحَثْ. If you chase the dog, the tongue will be outside panting. And if you leave it alone, the tongue will be outside panting. And this is the example of the people who disbelieve in the signs of Allah or the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ikhwani fillah, the scholars, they say, Man fasada min ulama'ina. Whoever gets misguided from our scholars, they become evil scholars. They are like the Jews, the Bani Israel. وَمَنْ فَسَدَ مِنْ عُبَادِنَا. And whoever gets misguided from our worshippers, they are like the Nasara, they are like the Christians. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us in the Quran, in the greatest surah of the Quran. What is the greatest surah in the Quran? That we all recite every day 17 times so that we do not follow the path of Balaam ibn Ba'ura, who was amongst the scholars, or Barsisa, who was amongst the worshippers, or we follow the way of Abdullah al-Qasimi, who was amongst the scholars, or we follow the way of Iblis, who was amongst the scholars and the worshippers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us every day, we recite in Surah Al-Fatiha, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Oh Allah, guide us to the straight path. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Sirat al-ladina an'amta alayhim. The path of the people that you have honored, that you have granted your favor upon. غير المغضوب عليهم, not the path of the ones whose anger is upon them. And this is no.
Are you addressing the people who is guiding them?
We'll talk more inshallah.
Continue that, yeah, mashallah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. غير المغضوب عليهم, the path of the people who were misguided. ولا الضالين. He lost me. The ones whose anger is upon them and the ones who are misguided. The ones whose anger is upon them, إخواني في الله, is the people of Bani Israel, the Yahud. They have knowledge of the religion, then they do not follow it. وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, and the people who are misguided are the Christians. They have no knowledge, but they have a lot of acts. So إخواني في الله, the scholars, they say, be very wary of following the path of the Yahud or the path of the Christians. Another example, إخواني, from the Sunnah, in Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ, he narrates from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, it's narrated by Anas bin Malik, that a man at the time of Prophet ﷺ, he became a Muslim. And he memorized Surah Al-Baqarah and Al-Imran. وَكَانَ يَكْتُبُ الْوَحْيِ, he used to record the revelation that Prophet ﷺ was receiving from Jibreel alayhi salam. He used to record the revelation. ثُمَّ تَرَكَ الدِّينَ, he left the religion. وَعَادَ إِلَى النَّصْرَانِيَّةِ, and he went back to Christianity. And he used to say to his people, مَا يَدْرِي مُحَمَّدْ إِلَّا مَا كَتَبْتُ لَهُ. Muhammad does not know alayhi salam anything except what I wrote for him. Are you together? This man, he became a murtad. He went back to Christianity. And he started making this false claim that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam does not know anything except what I write for him. And this man, he died. And he was buried. In the morning, his companions, they find his body outside the grave. They wonder what happened. And they say, هَذَا فِعْلُ مُحَمَّدٍ وَأَصْحَابِهِ. This is the act of Muhammad and his companions. Because our colleague, our companion ran away from them. Our colleague left their religion. That is why they did. They came at night and they dug his grave and they threw him out. So they decided to dig deeper. And they dug deeper. And they buried their colleague. The next morning they find the body outside. And they wonder. And they say, هَذَا فِعْلُ مُحَمَّدٍ وَأَصْحَابِهِ. This is the act of Muhammad and his companions. Our colleague left the religion of Islam and came back to Christianity. That's why they did this for him. And they dug the deepest. They took hours and hours and dug the deepest. And they buried him and they compacted the grave. And they left. And in the morning, they found the earth once again had thrown his body out. It had rejected his body. And they surrendered. And they threw his body and left it to rot as it was. This is the person who met Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. All of us, we wish if we could meet Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Even if we sacrifice our parents, our children, if we were just to meet Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, what a great blessing that is for us. This man met Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This man was at the time where the Quran was being revealed, and he notices the revelation that was being revealed to the Prophet ﷺ. This is a person who was taught the Quran or parts of the Quran by the Prophet and his companions. Yet he died the death of the people of the hellfire, the death of the people of Murtaddin, the apostates. Ikhwani fillah. Another example that I can remember from the Sunnah, a man was very brave, and he fights the jihad fi sabilillah. He fights for the religion of Allah, to raise the kalima of Allah very high. And he's injured, and he's bleeding profusely. But this man does not wait for his death. That's only a few minutes away. He takes a knife, ikhwani fillah, and he kills himself, and he commits suicide. And he becomes amongst the people of hellfire, who will be in the hellfire forever or for a very long period, committing suicide. If this man, ikhwani fillah, had waited for a few moments and he died the death of a shaheed, كان في أعلى الجنان, he will have been the highest levels of Jannah. But those few minutes where he made a bad decision condemned him to the hellfire. If you read the seerah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, what is the definition of a sahabi, of a companion of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam? The definition is man laqiya an-nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam wa amana bih wa mata ala dhalik. It's a person who met Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Condition number one, met, not seen as other books say. Met Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Number two, believed in Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And number three, mata ala dhalik, and they died upon that state. What is the meaning of this third condition, and died upon that state? Ikhwani fillah, few nas laqu an-nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They met Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, wa amanu bih, and they believed in him. But they did not die as Muslims, they died as murtaddin. Look at the tribe of Banu Hanifa, the tribe of Musaylim al-Kadhdhab, a tribe of tens of thousands. Ataw amal wufud. They came in the year 9, the year of delegations to Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And they accepted Islam. And they saw the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. They saw his beautiful face. And they gave him the bay'ah. They said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa annaka Rasulullah. And you are the Prophet of Allah. He was present. Yet these people, after they had the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam passed away, they said the Quraysh had a prophet. Also Banu Hanifa has a prophet now, Musaylim al-Kadhdhab. They said, Kadhdhab Mudar, ahabbu ilayna min Siddiq or Rabi'a. The truthful one from Quraysh is not better to us than the liar of our tribe. We choose the liar of our tribe, Musaylim al-Kadhdhab. These are people who, if they remain on that path, we should be telling them, radiyallahu anhu. We always make dua for them. Oh Allah, be pleased with them. As we say of every single Sahaba. But these are people who fought Islam. We now say, la'natullah alayhim. May the curses of Allah be upon them. For every person who met Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and believed in him and died upon that state is in Jannah. Jazman, they are in Jannah, no shak. لَقَدْ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ. Allah is pleased with them. It is in the Quran that every Sahaba is in Jannah. But these people, they followed a different path. They followed the path of tribalism. They followed the path of nationalism. And they got misguided as a result. Ikhwani fillah, what are the reasons that these people who are worshippers, like Abdullah al-Qasimi, like Balaam al-Ba'ura, or the people who are worshippers, like Barsisa, like the worshipper, the Muaddin we mentioned from Egypt, or the Mujahid, Abd ibn Abdul Rahim, whom I passed in the year 248. What are the reasons for scholars to become evil scholars, for worshippers to become enemies of Islam? These are what we are going to look in our forthcoming lecture tomorrow. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.